Welcome in for this week's episode of Money Coach Mastery. So glad to have Nicole with us on the show today. And you're what, 3 hours behind me in California?
Yes. Yep. In Southern California, just south of LA. So, yep, out here.
It's like the best place to have frugal living, live affordably, get a nice house on a 50K income.
Yeah. Oh,
Have
yeah.
you,
Yeah,
did you
there's a lot to
move,
talk out there, but
did you move out there or are you from that area?
no, I moved out here. So I'm from a really small town in Pennsylvania, and I moved out here about 5 or 6 years, mainly because of the weather, and then just kind of got stuck out here, a good stuck. So,
Nice.
yeah,
It's
but
funny. I grew up in a really small town in Michigan. Loved it actually. Now I live in Tampa, but was never really planning on it. But right now I'm like, yeah, the weather's great.
we're in Michigan.
The Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So if you know where Lake Superior is at,
Okay.
way up there. I'm a Youper, if you've ever heard of that.
I have not. I have not.
Well, there you go. Okay, so Nicole, what was kind of like you've been a money coach for approximately how long now?
I would say about a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay, year and a half to 2 years. And like, let's be real. Anytime you build a business, it's honestly a bunch of headaches, really hard work, can be discouraging. Like, why take the plunge into that? What was the inspiration?
Yeah, that's a great point because nobody prepares you for being a business owner, especially full time. So I actually kind of got thrown into it because I got laid off. So that was like a really nice opportunity for me to jump in. But I
What
can just,
good framing. I
what was
got
it?
laid off. What good framing. Yeah, I got laid off unexpectedly. Great opportunity.
Yeah. No, I'll go into that. But just quick backstory, probably like a lot of people, like growing up, we grew up in a small town and my dad worked really hard, just not like a ton of income, not much really any like discretionary income. So it just seemed like money was hard to come by. It was such a big deal. And it was just like we're in this scarce environment. And I was always told like, you need to work hard if you want to make money, if you want to survive, if you want to have a good future. And that there was something about that I think at a young age just didn't really sit with me right, because I saw other people at my school and friends being able to go on vacations, going to like soccer club, doing all these things. And I just felt like there was something off here. And I was very curious to figure out like, why do some people have money and other people don't? So that was just kind of something on the back burner. I feel like that was there my whole life,
Sure.
always out of curiosity. And so I did take that route of let's go to college and let's get a good job. And through doing that, I thought like once I had the job and I made really good income my first job out of school. And I thought at first, like when I got that job offer, I was like, wow, I made it. Like I have money now, like things are great. And then I realized that that's not really how it was. Like you have to work hard, you have to do all the things. And I was like, well, told like you have to work your whole life and then you can enjoy life afterwards. And that also didn't sit well with me. So I just started doing tons of self-research around anything finance and investing, and eventually found out the stock market, and then got really on top of my own personal finances, learned how to invest. I took advantage of my employer accounts and built essentially a completely tax-free portfolio that is set up and will support me long-term, even if I don't invest again. So yeah, so that was kind of I feel like my thing that inspired me to really fall in love with the potential of money and compound interest, and seeing how it can actually really truly add value to your life and support you. And that was a point where I wasn't interested in being a money coach, but it encouraged me to pursue a career in finance. So I went back to school, got my master's. While in my master's, I realized that there was this really big gap in women in finance, that there was all these big words, that it was scary.
You were chilling in your master's class. You're like, why is everyone in here a white dude wearing a vest?
Literally. And I'm just sitting there, and even, I don't know, this seemed like this always struck me very interesting because I even had a couple of different internships and jobs, and I felt like everyone that worked in finance too was almost like stuck to their job too. They just
Yeah.
making lots of money, but they were living these, I would say, more luxurious lifestyles. And I was like, if I was working in finance for 10 years, I'd be retired and,
Yeah.
living off of my investments by now. So I found that fascinating. And it's more than just like finance. It's more of like wealth building and how you actually live and create your own
Yeah.
lifestyle to support whatever it is that you want long term. And
Yeah.
so anyways, I was still working full time in like sales and recruiting, got laid off, and kind of all of that came together at this time where I was like, I kind of want to help women do the same thing and do it in a way that actually makes sense and seems more simple, easy to understand. So that kind of kickstarted my business journey.
That's awesome. I do want to circle back on something that you said like a minute or two ago. You're like, it's not necessarily about the income that you make from your job. It's about being intentional about the life that you want to live. Like me personally, I lived out of a van a couple of summers, like doing conservation work in the mountains. Loved that. That was like basically free.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Like, how many people do you talk to that if you ask them like, hey, have you ever stopped taking like a Saturday for a couple of hours and just thought to yourself, like, this is the life I want to live. This is ideally where I want to be. And so these are probably the financial choices that I should start making.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people don't even take time to sit down and think about what they want or what actually makes them happy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like response, 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 response. Got the money in the bank, spend it. Got the money in the bank, spend it. And then a few years go by and you're like, my life is not where I wanted it to be. But I also never really took the time to find guidance on, if I know I want this, what do I need to do to get there?
Yeah. And that makes me think of too, another question that a lot of people ask me is like, how much do I need to be financially free? And that's such a weighted question because it really depends on your definition of financial freedom, right? If you're content living in a van, have everything that you need, right? And that's what you enjoy, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You have a lot more freedom than the majority of people out there.
Yeah. That's also a great question because, the traditional framework, if you talk to a financial advisor, like, hey, what's the net worth number that I need? You'd probably hear like, oh, hey, you need 2 million to retire, 3 million to retire. The further that I've gone along in my investment journey, I'm like, dude, I would much rather technically have a net worth of 0, but have passive income of X amount. Dude, if I could make affiliate revenue of $5,000 a month and own nothing, I don't care. One of my good friends makes about $300 a day on TikTok shop. Dude was devastated when TikTok got canceled.
Sure.
It's like his net worth from that is technically nothing. But I'm like, dude, you're literally making $300 a day net, doing absolutely no work. Like you can live a lavish lifestyle. 300 bucks a day, that's like 350K. Am I underestimating that? I don't know. It's a lot of money a year. Yeah, it's about 350K.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually got someone who dropped in a comment. Sassy one lady. I retired from teaching personal finance in high school. Taught her students everything about finances, investing, 20 to 30K in the final years. And then she just started an online coaching business. Doing that in person over 15 years, but new online. That's awesome. So let's actually talk about so Nicole, so you're doing recruiting. That's actually an industry that's like pretty classic for salespeople where you can make really good money and then one pivot and half the floor gets fired, right? So you're like, okay, I don't want to go and get a recruiting job somewhere else. I want to start my own business. Like, did you have guidance on how to do that? Like, where did you even start?
Yeah, I really just threw myself into it. I don't recommend that because it was very traumatizing, if I'm being honest. So I'm a very left brain, like technical person. And I've tried to fight that and think like I'm more of like a personal person. Sales is great recruiting, but I was just like not interested in doing that anymore. And I felt like it was a very hustle type of culture. It was doing repetitive things over and over again. And like my brain just felt like it was going to explode. So I was like, I can't do that anymore. So the business aspect is extremely exciting for me because there are new challenges every single day, still to this day. And I did seek out mentorship, and I think that's extremely important, really, for anybody that wants to take things to the next level. Any CEO, athlete, successful person has some type of mentor or coach out there.
Yeah.
And so I forget, I think I came across this person through a friend, but there was a business coach that I invested in. His name is James Wedmore. He basically has a coaching program for online business owners who want to scale their business. So there was tons of marketing and strategy and teaching on how to build your website and set up the back end. So I really took time and focused on that first and foremost, and then started doing more of like the outreach and working to get clients that way. So having that guidance there was super helpful. But it was, I mean, it took a really long time to get a lot of the things set up. And I think that's just something that maybe without really having a business plan to start or knowing what it takes to create a business can kind of have your wheels spinning a bit for a while. So
yeah, one of the hardest parts I think about creating a new business is the balance of like, look, your revenue is your lifeblood. You don't have people giving you money, you don't have a business, right? Ultimately. So the part that's really difficult is how do you manage building fulfillment where people actually get in and get a great experience, right? Versus getting money in the door. And one of the most common traps, which I of course fell into, as most people do, is like getting so crazy about like my branding, my this, my that, and not really focusing enough on the revenue. But then the other trap to fall into is like, all I'm going to do is focus on my revenue, get great at sales, sell people, but then not be able to actually fulfill my promises, right? Where do you feel like so far you've been in that regard? And like, where are you at right now? Do you feel like you're at a good balance? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question. I fell into both sides of that. Right now, I feel pretty confident, and I feel like really like solid because enough time has went by that I feel really good as how I teach as a coach and the information I'm putting out there. And then I think sales is always something that you're going to need to do, and I don't necessarily feel like I have a solid strategy down just yet, but I feel like what I'm doing is it's kind of like compound interest. It's just small things here and there that are going to grow into something really beautiful, hopefully in the long term. But I think one of the biggest things I did was, especially, and to your point of like not having revenue, I agree, because going from a cushy salary to not having revenue, and I put myself in a really good position in the short term because I knew like there's going to be some time where I need to build things up. But there was also a point where things were getting low and I wasn't, generating revenue. And it's just like, it's funny because it's like, well, as a financial coach, you're supposed to have your finances together. So it's such a mental trip. But what I did two things. So I realized with the help of some other coaches that business is truly a long-term game. You need to look at it that way. And I picked up some side work to help supplement, which I feel like wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do because I wanted to really put my all into my business, but you have to take care of yourself. So I think that's a really, really important thing to do and probably recommended in the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. So the maxim where it's like, oh, just jump out of a helicopter or a plane and build your parachute down. I did that. And actually I lost pretty much all of my money. Like I quit. This was a little over a year ago. My net worth dropped by like 70%. I ended up, so I quit the job that I was working for, started my own business doing real estate acquisitions, and then bought a flip like at the same time. Flip went way over budget, ended up losing money on it, had to borrow more money to get it done. And then my other business, like I was stressed out about the fix and flip, and then it was eating up my marketing money. And the first deal that I thought I was going to make like 20 grand on, and be like, all right, cool. Now we've got like, we're good to go. Almost turned into a lawsuit. And then I ran out of money for marketing. And I was just like, okay, new advice. I don't really like the strategy of burn the boats. I like the strategy of operate from a position of power, which I think is exactly what you're describing. Like there's something to be said about having your back against the wall, but not great for mental health. I'm more of a like, hey, put yourself in a really good position and then do the inputs that will produce the outputs that you want. The other point too about business being a long-term game, like here's the thing. If you're building a business that has enterprise value, in other words, like you have something that's going to continue to create cash flow, isn't just like a marketing and sales operation, but actually has value in and of itself, and you could sell it. Like, dude, yeah, like that doesn't happen overnight, and you don't get that from your job. Your job stops, you get fired, and guess what? That's it. No more money. Completely turned off. If you build a business the right way, and it will take a lot of time, that's not the case, right?
Yeah. Actually, there was a point where that was actually the mentality I had too, like burn the boats and just go all in. And there was a point where I was ready, actually probably 2 points where I was ready to I was like, this is not worth it. Like it's not worth it. And I also study a lot of like mindset work, subconscious reprogram, that side of things. And that's actually really bad for your mind, because if you do that and you get burned so bad, there creates like a really strong neural pathway in your brain that makes it a strong belief that it's just not going to work out. And it can be really, really hard to keep pushing through that, or even wanting to go back into that and try new things. So yeah, to your point, I don't think that's a good approach for most people. Maybe some.
I mean, it is literally trauma, right? Like, is it not, it's no different than trauma. That was for me, like, thankfully, I got back on the horse, like took a while to get my mind right. But eventually I was able to have the mindset like, oh, I failed once. Now I know what not to do and how to do it correctly. And having a lot more success. And like I have another flip going that's going really well. But yeah, it's like, it's really difficult for sure. And so I guess, Nicole, like, you started a year and a half ago to 2 years ago. What do you think have been the biggest things that you've taken away in the last couple of years? How do you feel about where you're at right now in your coaching business?
Yeah, I feel really good right now. I feel like I feel really rooted to the work. I think whenever I first started out, I didn't really have any training as how to be a coach. Like there's a difference between teaching and actually coaching.
Yeah.
And I think like I dealt with a ton of imposter syndrome, a ton of perfectionism, like making sure my brand colors made sense. And I had a website and all these things. And I think you have to go through that stuff to overcome it. Right. And I think it was more challenging for me because I was kind of in that place where I was like fighting, like needing revenue while going through that. I didn't start my business to be needing revenue. I wanted to start my business to really help people. And I was like, well, I can't help people because I don't have money. And it was this whole thing, which I'm sure you get.
And then the imposter syndrome is like, great, here I am helping people. Meanwhile, I haven't cashed a check in a while. I'm like, what am I even doing right now? Okay. You said teaching is different than coaching.
Yeah.
How?
Well, I mean, teaching, you are providing education, right? It's like, this is how the stock market works. This is how investing works. If you invest in this stock, it grows over time. This is what it looks like. Coaching is really creating space for those. So a lot of my clients, they need help more with their emotions and their relationship with
Yeah.
money. And it's really just creating space for them, listening, and then also helping them see things differently, creating a
Yeah.
different perspective. Just like when I got let go from my job, a lot of my coworkers were really, really bummed. I looked at it like, this is an opportunity. If this didn't work out, there's another door that's open. How can I look at this in a positive way? And I think it's all about taking someone through a current state of mind, maybe a negative belief around money, and showing them how that is actually not true and how there's proof in other things or just ways to look at it differently. So I think like that is actually, I find that more enjoyable working with
Yeah.
clients through that stuff, because I think it has a more profound impact and transformation. And for women, at least, I feel like that is something that has much more value.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. I will say too, the better that I've gotten at sales and the more confident that I've gotten in, money, real estate, etc., I've found that when people say, "Hey, Jared," or "Hey, Nicole," like, you know what you're doing, help me. Really, what they're saying is, listen to me. I'm going to tell you what I want. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Like, my favorite is when I go to a restaurant and I'm just looking at this menu. And he's got all this stuff on it. I'm like, dude, I don't know anything about, like, I'm not a foodie. I like good food. I don't know anything about this restaurant. I literally will just look at the waiter and be like, tell me what to get. That's
Yeah.
all I really want. And I think sometimes people really struggle with like, oh, I don't want to come across as rude, or like, I don't have the confidence. It's like, no. If someone says, I want you to be coach, or you getting on like that introductory call or whatever, sales is really easy. Like, hey, tell me what you want. Okay, this is what you should do to get it. And I have an exact proven path for how you can get that. That's it. And I will make sure that you get it. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to test you. I'm going to be here to make sure that you tell me what you want. I'm going to find a way to help you get it. It can be that straightforward, right?
It can. Absolutely. I mean, it's really, yeah, that's exactly what it is in a nutshell.
Yeah. What are you doing right now for most of your prospecting? Like, do you get most people that have been following you for a while on Instagram and, after X amount of time message you and they're like, hey, Nicole, I like your content. I think I need help.
It's been really random, to be honest. I had a weird relationship with Instagram where one of the first strategies I tried out was just cold DMs. And I felt like one of those investing accounts that's just like being like, come and invest your money with me, or like buy this crypto. And I was like, I don't know if this is the best way to build trust. I had a business coach that was like, you got to do this. So I was like, okay, I'll try it out. I actually did get a couple people that way, but it didn't really feel authentic. So I stopped that. And then I've been trying a couple different things. So sometimes I'll get just responses from Instagram stories that I'll post. From testimonials or different things that I'm currently doing with my finances. Referrals, and then I would say more so from in-person networking events. So
really?
I try to, because I feel like at least me as a woman, I'm like, where would I go to get personal finance information? And while Instagram could be that place, I feel like Instagram is more like for entertainment, and I would probably want to just get to know someone more before I really trust them with my finances. So I try to think of it that way. And because I have had success with Instagram and I really do like the platform.
Yeah.
I've been doing a couple different things. So I've been trying to hit like 2 in-person networking events a month. I'll post every now and then on Instagram. This year, I am challenging myself to be more consistent. I haven't defined that yet, but that's on the 2025 plan. And then I also have a newsletter and then host some webinars every single week too.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, yeah, that's cool. Okay, one question really quick. Do you have KPIs that you keep track of on your and let me define that.
Okay.
Because people, it's kind of like goals. People get KPIs wrong all the time. Okay. KPI, something that you can control no matter what. It's always an input that you can make, not dependent on anything else. And all you're tracking, you don't care about the outputs, you don't care about anything else. Did I do these number of inputs? Do you have any that you're tracking currently or that you think makes sense for what turns into business?
So I would say my newsletter, I send out one a week. I'm
Yep.
very consistent with that. And then my webinars, I'm doing that twice a week. And
Nice.
so that those are the two things that I've committed to. And also I want to share this because I think this will be helpful. And to your point of
Please
not
do.
focusing on the outcome, because I think that was a challenge too. I was really tying like these activities, well, if they don't generate revenue, then they're not working.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking at what activities can I do that are going to also challenge me as a person. So
Hmm.
the emails, the newsletter, I'm getting better at copywriting
Hmm.
and showing up for my business. And then the webinars have actually played a huge part in me feeling confident to come on and speak and show up and be seen. So that was even a bigger, I think, success or win for me than the outcome for that specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I think too, you mentioned in-person stuff. I'm like, hey, you don't need a lot of different things to track, but just figure out like, and it doesn't have to be, hey, these are the things that produce revenue. To your point as well, like these are the things that also makes me over time a better marketer, better salesperson, etc. I tell people like, yo, less is better. Pick the couple of things that you can crush that work really well. For me, I'm really big on like Instagram story engagements. That
Mm,
works well for me. Um, in my lending business especially, like that's always done really well. And then my posts, I just think of, well, basically I'm following up with a bunch of people without actually having to like directly message them. And that's worked really well for me.
I like that thought process there. That makes sense. What do you do
Mhm.
for your stories?
So my honestly, like, let's just be transparent. I suck at stories for this Money Coach Mastery brands. Terrible at it because it's like way harder for me to post stuff because it's not my day to day. I'm really bad at it. In my lending business, it's great because I can constantly post of like, hey, I helped someone get into a deal as a lender, which is rare, or like, hey, I just funded this, or I don't know. I do everything. Like people don't work with businesses, they work with people. So it's like posting stuff of my dog, people love that. Posting stuff where I'm at the gym, other people really like that wouldn't care about my dog. So really it's kind of a strategy to build rapport and likewise when I engage with other people. So I want to put stuff that's just like my business is me. I'm not one to really have like some people really like segmented lives. I'm like, nah, dude, I'll talk about real estate at 11 p.m. or I'll talk about it while I'm at church at 8:30 the next day. Like I don't really care. So I post about all aspects of my life, but then also other people on their stories. If people are posting about rock climbing, I'm like, oh, dude, that's awesome, or whatever else. Like I'm just establishing that we like each other, basically, because that if people know you and you establish that you guys like each other, which usually just means one shared common interest, you have one shared common interest with almost every single person on the planet. As soon as they have a need for you in their life, if you establish those two things, you'll probably be the first person they think of or close to it.
Such a good point. Yeah, it's easy to just want to go business, business, business and forget that personal aspect there. So I love that. That's so right. Yeah, that's so
Yeah,
true.
I mean, nobody really if all you were was a money coach and you had no life outside of that, I don't really like I wouldn't find you that interesting. You're great to talk to, but if your personality stopped at your life and your personality started and stopped at
That's
that,
all I
I would
do.
just be like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Next.
You'd be like a corporation. I don't want to talk to a corporation in my free time.
Yeah, that is true. That is really true.
So, Nicole, what has been one of the biggest things that you've done in your business that you think would be helpful for other money coaches?
Yeah. So I think kind of like we talked about is finding like one or two things to just really stick to because I think that There's also like an energetic component to showing up consistently and putting
Yep.
your focus and energy into the work. Like even with the webinars, sometimes no one even shows on the webinars, but I don't care because that it's also
Yep.
me showing up. And I think energetically it's putting out there that this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and I know it's going to come
Agreed
later.
100%. And you have to fight them. Like your brain is wired to tell you out of scarcity, like nobody's going to come. Just don't do it. Your mind will tell you that 100%.
Sometimes I'm stoked when no one shows up because I'm like, it's less pressure and I don't have to say everything perfectly, which I don't really buy into that anyways. But yeah, it's funny how your brain is. Ugh,
Yeah.
more about the
What about,
brain. That's the takeaway.
yes, yeah, don't listen to your brain. um, what is one thing that you're doing in your business now that you wish you would have been doing, a year, 2 years ago?
I think pushing myself a little bit harder. So I think whenever I had kind of like some cushy savings, I was more relaxed. I was like, I get to enjoy my life and take my time and just show up whenever I feel like doing something versus really creating a plan and maybe like doing every day. I write down 3 priorities I need to do for my
Yeah.
business. And if I don't get anything else done, that's fine. That was still success. So just operating like a business owner, not killing yourself, but making sure that you're doing revenue generating things every single day, even if they're not paying off right away.
Love that. Love that. What about any particular resources specific to building your business, whether that's been like a particular website, mentorship group, whatever, like that has been really helpful or you really love for your money coaching business specifically?
Yes. So the person I mentioned earlier, James Wedmore, he has his company. It's called Business by Design. That was a huge
Mm,
help because that really gave me a lot of the just like the templates, the structure for
yeah.
your website, sales page, like how to set up your emails, your email list, and do different automations, like a lot of technical things like that. That was a really huge help. And then really like not money related at all, but I think personal development. There's a podcast called Guided Light Healing. And so I work with the guy as my coach now who runs
Yeah.
that. And it's very spiritual based, but I like to describe it as it teaches you how to be a human and be happy. And it's just like blown my brain away about how life works and has given me such a different perspective on business where I don't really feel stressed or worried about the future or anything. I just kind
I
of
love that.
focus on
Are you
enjoying it now.
are you
So
and Madison in that together or no?
no, we're not.
Oh, that's interesting because she was telling me we were talking about the spiritual component of money in life quite a bit too. Because I was like, oh well, I know you guys are friends, right? I don't
Yeah.
know how you met, but I was like, oh, they're probably in the same group then.
We met on Instagram actually, because I think she started her business a little bit after me, and we had some mutual friends, and so we connected on Instagram. And then I was out in Arizona because my sister lives there, and that's where she lives. And we
Oh,
grabbed
nice.
coffee, and we just became basically business accountability buds now. So yeah,
Yeah,
we're friends, and she's great. She's amazing.
that's awesome. Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up with just this one last question here. For anyone tuning in, what do you think is one thing that someone could take away from this that's super low hanging fruit? Like, hey, if nothing else, take this, implement this in your business in the next 24 hours. This little tweak will help you in some way
Okay.
to put you on the spot.
No, it's a great question. And it's probably something different than you would get. But I would say look for 2 ways that your business is already successful.
Love that.
Yeah. For your brain, right? You need
For
to
your
see
brain.
that it's already successful. So look at 2 things that happen that are proof that your business is already successful or getting more successful.
Love that. Have you read The Gap in the Gain or no?
I haven't.
That sounds like exactly. I read, okay, I listened to it on audio, got like a third way through it, and I was like, all right, concept very well established. I think I'm good. But it was that exact principle of as people, we're wired to always think about the ideal. always look towards the horizon, always look towards the horizon. And when you ever take out your eyes off the horizon, you're always comparing where you're at to where this future ideal is. And you're always kind of left dissatisfied. Where it's like, hey, why not look at where you started? Look at all the progress that you've made, turn around and be like, wow, I have made a lot of gains, rather than look at the gap. And there you go. Now you don't have to read it, because that's basically the book.
Perfect. I love it.
So,
Yeah, it's such, I mean, it's so true. It's like when you want something, by saying you want something, like you're just staying in that state of wanting and you're attracting more wanting, not already being there. So, like you mentioned, it's finding ways you already are and showing that to yourself and just building that, like compound
yeah,
interest again. So,
I love it. I love it. Cool. So Nicole, anyone who wants to connect with you, where's the best place?
yeah. So I am on Instagram more now. So it's at She Investor. And then also my website has a lot of information about what I'm doing too right now. And that is just sheinvestor.com.
That's a pretty solid domain. Like, I'm kind of surprised you locked that one up.
It was an intuitive hit. And yep, I jumped on that. So
Nice. I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, Nicole, and for everyone else who tuned in. It was great having you, and we will be back sooner rather than later for our next episode of Money Coach Mastery.
thank you.